Hey, you. Thanks for tapping into another episode of Untapped Keg, podcast where we explore different perspectives of sobriety and mental health so that you can take something and implement it into your own life. Here, we believe there's only one right way to sobriety. It's the way that works for you. I'm RJ Zimmerman, and I'm really excited to have on with us today this Naked Mind certified alcohol-free life coach, Michelle Nesbitt. How are you doing today, Michelle?
I'm great, RJ. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Today's the first day kids are off of school, so it's been a little chaotic this morning, but you know what? It's fun chaos right now, and that is not bad.
It's life.
Right? So and it's something that I can appreciate now where I am, whereas a couple of years ago I'd have been really frustrated and flustered, and I mean even probably last year to be honest, but this year's been just different, just different on a lot of different aspects. So, um, Michelle, for those who don't know, could you give us a little bit of background into how you got to where you are now?
Sure. Gosh, I was in the restaurant business for 30 plus years and entrepreneur and loved it. And I would say probably working my way through um, different life journey for sure. I ended up being divorced, and I had always used alcohol socially growing up, you know, during my life. And then after divorce and selling out of my businesses, I had a really hard time coping. And I was just using alcohol and going to wine, going out with friends, and just trying to work through lots of things I had to process. And all that time, I was using more and more because I wanted to numb the pain more and more. And I truly had no idea that it was addictive. I knew that there were people that they call themselves alcoholics and they're addicted to alcohol. But truly, I did not know that it could be addictive to anyone. So for myself, it was a pretty big shock when I decided that I was going to back off. And I had a really hard time. And I went, whoa, what's going on here? Like, I'm stronger than this. Uh, I'm smarter than this. I can do this. And I had a really hard time, and it had a hold on me. So I can honestly say that it opened my eyes. And then I found this naked mind, and I took a course with this naked mind, 30-day alcohol experiment, started to read a lot of the book, started to listen to a lot of the podcasts, and realized there was a lot of underlying reasons why I was drinking. And it wasn't just social, and it wasn't just, oh, I just don't want to think about things right now. There was so much more underneath the surface. And if I'm honest, I think I look back over my lifetime and realized there was a lot of things in my life, conditioning, thought patterns, behaviors that I wasn't happy with, and they were just going along in life. And that was a lot of the reason. There's a buildup, and it
Mhm.
doesn't just happen. Sometimes people drink all their life and have a problem. I didn't until it was a problem. But then I realized there was so much more below the surface that I had been trying to numb and cope for a long, long time. So that's how I got here. And then I decided to, once I gave up alcohol, I decided that I wanted to help others do the same because there are a lot of people that are in my particular position where they never thought it was addictive. I had no idea it wasn't my fault. I kept blaming myself. And I thought, no, it is really such a scary substance that it can get anybody. And so for myself, I decided to take the certification course. And now I'm an alcohol free coach and habit change coach.
Mhm. And that's your story. Just it resonates because there's so many times where you hear people's talk and they're like, well, in my younger years, I could stop. I, didn't have anything that I wanted to change. And then, like you were saying with that buildup over time that can happen, it's definitely not an all or nothing thing, especially when it comes to alcohol or honestly any substance that ends up interfering with our life. Like at one point, there it was self-care. It was what doing what it was we were looking for it to do. But at a point, that's when it becomes interfering with our life, and we have to take a look and be like, okay, is this what I want? Do I want to change the relationship with this? What, and the things that, like you're saying too, about not even realizing how deep those beliefs go and those underlying reasons that are there. Those are things when you start to dig, it can uncover some stuff that gets a little bit uncomfortable. Um, what would you say has really allowed you to enjoy your freedom from alcohol, um, and just not really be stuck with that, with wishing that you could still drink?
Honestly, I don't I look back now and see my life was so complicated, and adding alcohol to the mix complicated it even more. And for me, going through um, this naked mind, I'm not just here to plug naked mind. I'm not here to plug it at all. I'm here to tell the story that that's how I found a way out. And I don't even think about it anymore. It changed my whole belief system around alcohol. And I truly let myself off the hook for a lot of it because I I embraced compassion. I embraced finding myself again. And in all of that, I think you go through life and life gets difficult and complicated, and you lose yourself along the way. And sometimes you can find yourself, but when you add something else into the mix, it just pushes it down deeper. And for myself, the kindness and compassion that I gave myself on my journey of giving up alcohol was the biggest eye opener for me. And then it opened up to what else is it that I want to change to make my life happier and feel more joy. Giving alcohol up actually was the easy part when I look at it. And it was all the reasons why I drank underneath that were the harder ones. And sometimes they were scary, but honestly, I embrace fear because I know if I meet it head on and I sit with it and I go through it, I get through the other side, and the peace and the joy on the other side is absolutely fantastic. And refinding myself again was probably the biggest um, gift I was given through this journey. And I think if I hadn't have been drinking and wanting to give up alcohol, I'm not sure that I would have really found myself again. I would have just kept going on. So it's been a real gift to say, hey, I'm giving it up. And then I was left with some feelings that I wanted to pursue. So I'm just so blessed and so excited and stoked every day about finding out who I am again.
Mm. And that's such a wonderful reminder that you get to find who you are again and again, and you get to evolve, right? There are pieces of you that weren't there necessarily back when, in your 20s or your teens or things like that. I know there's a lot of people that are like, well, I want to get back to who I was in high school before all of this. And it's like, oh, you've experienced a lot of life since then. That's not going to be attainable. Like there's some things that maybe you did that maybe you'll still enjoy, but look for new. Don't just go back to the old. Look for new. And that's when life gets fun. You get to try these new things out and see them. And you talked about embracing fear, which is such a powerful concept too. And sometimes we look at, fear is meant to be pushed to the side, it's meant to be pushed down. You can't admit that you're scared. Then you look at the definition of bravery, and without feeling fear, you can't be brave. So embracing that fear allows you to be brave and courageous.
Absolutely. That was one great thing that I did learn. You can't be courageous without having the fear to begin with. And I still every day there are things that you're kind of a little afraid of or unsure, and I meet it head on. I say, okay, this is giving me a little red flag. If I'm feeling fear, I want to address it, because everything that you push down, it just gets pushed down deeper and deeper. And that means it's going to come up with more of a vengeance or a push or a volatility that it's hard. It makes life really hard. And ignoring things along the way, which I don't think we were ever taught how to really deal with our feelings properly. We just push them aside, or, pull up your socks, charge forward. And there's some truth to that too. But you can't ignore things that are poking away at you, and that will eventually, they just keep coming up. The more you push them down, the more they're just piling up, and it just becomes too big. So I don't let anything pile up anymore. When something comes up, I look at it, and I'm grateful to do so, because I get so much more joy and understanding from it. Some things I can't change, and that's okay. Recognizing that, but knowing how I work around that and what I want to do about it. And it's no longer what society wants to do. It's no longer what my friends want me to do. It's truly finding the answers within yourself that work for you. And they're different for everybody. And I don't know if you ever saw My Best Friend's Wedding with Julie Roberts. She was dating certain people, and she would always like the eggs, the type of eggs, the style of eggs um, that her present boyfriend ate. And when she went on the quest to find herself, she said, I want to know what kind of eggs I really like. And it's sort of the same thing. It's very simplified, but it's true. We have to find out what we want, what we like, what works for us, change it if we don't. And it's just a constant journey of unearthing all these different things and being authentic and living for yourself and not for everybody else, especially in this day and age of social media and fear of what others think and FOMO and, oh my goodness, image. If you can tap into yourself and be true to yourself every day, that's the joy. That's all you need. You don't need all the big stuff. You need joy within yourself, because that's what makes life.
I just wanted to sit with that for a little bit because that's really what it's all about, right? And I was talking to a client not a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about success. And they were defining success based on the outcome of what happened. And so I said, what if we, not you, but we are defining success wrong? She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, can you actually control how people are going to act and what that outcome is actually going to be? She's like, no. I'm like, okay, so what can you control? Oh, I guess what I do. And I'm like, yep. So what if success is after everything is done, you look back and you think, I'm proud of how I showed up. I'm proud of how I responded instead of reacted to this situation. I wake up the next morning, I look back at the day before, and I'm like, you know what? There were some moments where could be better, but I'm proud of the way that I showed up overall. That could be our new definition of success. And it just, you can see the weight lift off of them. And I brought this up before too, but it's something that I also deal with, where it's like, I've showed up in situations as perfect as I can, and they haven't worked out. Does that mean they're unsuccessful? No, it's a good lesson that I actually am leaving this not feeling devastated. Am I disappointed? Sure, but not devastated because I couldn't have shown up any better. And that's a way to live life that you can really grasp and look forward to.
I love that, RJ. I love that. I think paying attention to our feelings,
Mm.
and that's what I do all the time. If I'm off or feeling uncomfortable in a situation, I step back for a moment and think, where is the discomfort coming from? Is it coming from me? Have I said something that isn't congruent with who I am? It's not in alignment with who I am. Am I trying to people please? Am I worried about what others are thinking? So there's so many things to look at, but your feelings, when you feel off or a little kind of flutter in your stomach, or you feel a little rush in your head. It's, there's something that's just not right. You're not feeling good.
Mhm.
That's when I pay attention. Go, okay, what's happening here? Is it something that somebody is saying? And it could be just somebody saying something to you, but it's how you feel about what they're saying, and take that away and look at that. Maybe it's old conditioning. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's something you need to work on, or maybe it's a judgment that you're not happy with. There's so many things, but paying attention to how you feel. I do it all the time. When I'm feeling off, I step away, or I think to myself, where's this coming from? Because if it's not in alignment with me, if I'm not acting in alignment, or someone else is affecting my alignment, I pay attention, because it's not congruent with who I am. And then I have to make some changes.
And when you say in alignment with you, what is it you mean by that?
Oh, that has to do with, excuse me, my values. What is what is true for me? I live with kindness. I write every morning in my journal. I live with honesty, authenticity, compassion, kindness, and forgiveness. There's If that isn't in my environment, I can feel it. If I'm not doing something with in alignment with those things, I feel it. So it's simple, but you have to get clear on what those things are that give you those feelings of alignment. Those are mine. They might be different for someone else. Things that are really important. And if you live by those every day, it makes you feel good. You keep feeling good. But if you aren't living by them, and we don't do it all the time, but when we don't, we kind of get that feeling. And that's what I'm talking about. You have to know what they are first. And that was a search for me. I mean, I knew a lot of them, but I need to live them and know that they're really, really deep down values for me.
And I'm really grateful to you for explaining that, because sometimes I know, especially when we get together as coaches and we get really excited and we start using words, like people who aren't quite there yet are like, okay, I hear you saying that word, but what could that mean? And it's one of those things where when you define it, it's like, oh, that's a starting point, naming my values. Then I can find my alignment, right? And that's something that when I recognize that, oh, taking these words and defining them for myself in a useful way will point a direction that I can begin walking, and or figuring out how I can implement it into my life, different ways like that. And like you said, for it'll vary. And the thing about your values too is there might be a new one that's added. There might be one that gets a little bit smaller for a little bit. There might be, so always understanding that life is evolving, you are evolving, and maybe there's just different words, but for me, it's curiosity, creativity, compassion, um, and that kindness, that trying to figure out how to be more transparent with myself and my friends, like, so they don't have to ask the perfect question for me to be honest about how I'm doing in life and what's going on. Like that, that is something that opens up to you too. What One thing that I would like to get it, there's a couple things I'd like to get into, but you mentioned when you're feeling out of alignment and you step away to analyze what it is you're feeling, where it's coming from, what could be the origination of it. What are some tools that you use to figure out what it is you're feeling?
For me, I need some silence and some space. And I sit back and get curious. I love that you mentioned that word curiosity, because that's woven in my life, my everyday life now.
Mm-hmm.
And I get curious about what it is that I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it, where have I felt it before, and what is it triggering anything, and giving it some space to be, because it is real. And we don't want to say it's not a real feeling.
Yes.
Uh, and that's a whole new thing for me.
Oh,
I
me
used
too.
to
Game
I used to
changer.
push it away. I know. And that's that's where I say I embrace fear. And truly, this sounds really weird, but I get excited when I feel some fear because I'm like, oh man, I'm not afraid of fear anymore. I know it's there and I feel it, but I'm not afraid of it anymore because I know working through it, getting curious, sitting down with it, kind of chewing it all up and going, okay, and then feeling it. Feeling it is uncomfortable. And that's okay because then it passes. And when it passes, I kind of have a little giggle to myself and go, oh, that's what that was about. Okay. And I learn from it. And sometimes I learn that, okay, maybe I have to do something different. Um, but I always step away and get curious and always compassion in there. If I've said something that maybe isn't in alignment with me, I don't beat myself up anymore. I used to get so upset if I wasn't saying something perfect or saying something right. Perfect is overrated. It's not realistic.
It's
So
inauthentic.
it is inauthentic. I I am happy to be imperfect. And I tried to keep everything together for so long by being perfect and saying the right things and doing the right things. And it's just a whole ball full of pain
Hmm.
and restrictions and talk about being in a box and no freedom. So actually being imperfect is very freeing. It's very liberating.
It is. It that's where that people pleasing, that there's so much to perfectionism, and that's why, the queen, Auntie Brene Brown, right? Like, just the way that she talks about vulnerability and the way she talks about emotions and feelings, like, that's where I started to be able to find the vocabulary to actually be able to name what it was when I would do that diagnostic that you're talking about, which was really fantastic. Thank you for walking us through that, because that was, you asked some questions there that were like gold, gold. Yes, people will be able to take that and really be able to utilize it. Um, but that when you move from that perfectionistic attitude to being a human, which means you're imperfect, which means it's okay you're imperfect because you're just human. Oh, that weight that gets lifted again is just like, you really feel your shoulders go from, up at your ears to, oh, this doesn't feel so bad. Okay. Yeah, I can handle this. I can do life, I think.
It's so true. I remember the first time in the last few years going through this journey, I remember the first time that someone said to me, you're human. And I was upset with myself for something. And I wouldn't have been upset with someone else for it, but I was holding myself to a higher standard, that perfectionism. I was great at being compassionate and forgiving to others and cutting people slack, but I wasn't
Yes.
about myself. And I remember one of the other coaches said to me, you're human. And it was like an aha moment. The student was ready. I was ready to hear that, but I was ready to hear it for what it was. I am not human. Or sorry, I am human. I am not perfect. And when it resonated with me, I kind of sat back and went, whoa, I don't have to be. I get to give myself all of that compassion and love, forgiveness, and understanding that I give to everyone else. Why wouldn't I give it to me? And that was probably one of another big moment in my personal growth that I went, oh wow, I'm really worth this. I'm worth what I give to others and what I talk to others, the way I talk to others. I'm worth the same thing. And that self-worth component is another piece of the puzzle for me that I was missing. I was confident all my life, outgoing all my life. I did not have good self esteem. And people think confidence is self-esteem, and it's completely different. I never really felt inside the way others felt about me. Others told me things and complimented me and thought I was smart, I was funny, I was good at what I did, I was successful. And I heard that, and that's wonderful, but I never believed it. I never felt I was worth it. And what an incredible thing to finally see that I am. And I can say that now and know my true worth and know I'm worth all the goodness and all the abundance that there is. And I kind of giggle to myself that I really like myself now. And it's not that I hated myself before. There's a lot of myself that I didn't like, that I wasn't this and I wasn't that. And now I don't have to be anything but me. And I love myself for that. And it is so freeing and so liberating. It's just like you said, the shoulders go from up here to down here. And it you get to live life in such a joyful place, a happy place. People say to me all the time now, you look so peaceful and you're so happy. I'm like, I am. I am. I have my bad days and I work through those, but I am happy and joyful and full of so much peace. I can't tell you. It's such an amazing difference.
It really is. The first time that I felt peace, uh, I had been working for a year or more on really feeling my emotions and feelings. And I'm finally able to name what's going on. I've been working through so much pain, just working through it at an unhealthy pace. And um, that's the thing is like the way that I did things, I tell people I don't recommend. But here is kind of what I did. So you could take it and use it in a better way than what I did, because I did everything by myself. But um in by myself, I mean like I learned it reading books, doing, just sitting by myself, not reaching out to friends, not reaching out for support. And I was driving my kids to school and I just felt like I was numbing again. And I was pissed. I was so pissed. I'm like, I went through all of this pain. I went through all this suffering and now I'm numbing again. What the fuck is going on? And I'm like, I'm hitting the steering wheel. My oldest is like, Daddy, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just frustrated because of traffic, like made up something. And all of a sudden a song comes on that reminded me of my ex-wife. And I had a little tear that started to come up and come down. And I'm like, oh, I'm still feeling. What? Wait, is this peace? Is this what people are talking about when they say that they feel peace? Is this what this is? Oh, that's actually kind of nice. Okay. All right. I can get used to this. And then and then I let myself actually feel that, but it was like I was so angry, but it's one of those things that you don't even recognize as possible until you feel it for the first time. You can hear it and you're like, yeah, that's probably what that is. Yeah, that okay, sure. But then you feel it, just like you were talking about with you can have that confidence and feel like, oh, it could be self-esteem or self-worth, which confidence, self-esteem, self-worth, all of them are different. Even though they're related, they're all different. And when you start to recognize that they're different and you're like, oh, my self-esteem has been really up and down my whole life. Oh, and I like to tell people this too. Like, I didn't just have no self worth, I had negative self worth. Like, I thought that you deserved to be given the world just by having my presence in your life. Like, I thought that I was a drain on everybody, a negative just force, right? And I really did hate myself. And once I started to recognize that, oh, I can actually be worthy of the things that I give to other people and started to work on that, just the combination of all of that and just how quickly you can raise the way that you look at life, and nothing necessarily has to change. You could be going through the worst moment of your life. And as you start to recognize your own self-worth, as you start to recognize that, oh, my self-esteem is going to go up and down, but it doesn't have to go up and down so much and so fast. Start to recognize that, oh, I can get to this peaceful feeling. I can work through and feel my feelings, and that's okay. I can give myself compassion that right now is difficult, and that's okay. What you get to experience in that moment, it gets you to that place of contentment, gets you that place of, I'm okay. I don't have to be good or bad. I can just be okay, and I'm okay. And like that is something that is special.
That's awesome. I love that.
And, as you've been talking and giving us a dive into what has been so helpful for you and laying out some tools that people can take, um, you keep talking a lot about, the authentic self, being your authentic self, being in alignment with who you are and your values. What does being your authentic self really mean to you?
That's a wonderful question. And I'm so happy that you asked it. I was thinking as you were talking, finding who I am at the core, my values, my what works for me to be in alignment. I have all my life been very active, very outgoing, on the go all the time, all the time. And that is my energy. And growing up, even in business, in my marriage, go, 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 go all the time. And there was always this piece of me that loved to just sit at home sometimes and just do nothing, have like a family night or do nothing. And sometimes people see that as, oh, that's boring. You got to be doing. And in my mind over the years, I was doing. And I now realize I was running a lot. And I was running as a distraction. I was doing way too much in my life as a distraction. And I couldn't sit with myself and truly be be happy and content with myself. I would think, oh, this is boring. I can't be boring. And now, being my authentic self, I spend a lot of time alone. And I, for most parts of it, love it. I love being at home. I love walking my dog. I love spending time with friends. I play pickleball, I kayak, I cycle. I do so much. I golf. I do so much with my friends when I choose. And sometimes I overextend myself and then I know to pull back. But what's authentic, so authentic about me now is that I allow myself to enjoy those times that are quiet, that I'm reading, I'm sitting outside, I'm walking in nature, I'm at home, chilling on the couch. I completely give myself permission to do that and make it okay. And I don't label myself as, oh, that's a boring night. No, it was such a peaceful, beautiful night. And growing up being a person with ADHD, you were go, 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 go all the time. And I didn't know how to regulate that. They didn't have any medications when I was young or anything. And I didn't know how to regulate that. So I just burned it off, which in a sense is good too. Now I know some good personal care and feeling good about myself is very authentic and it helps me give me my peace. And that's how I regulate. And I enjoy it. And that might be different for other people. That's just what works for me. And whatever works for me, I completely give myself permission and I revel in it because that's who I am. And I love that now.
As somebody with ADHD who is, late diagnosed, like I resonate with that of the go, 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 burning it off, not understanding how to really regulate anything. Like, what does regulate mean? That sounds boring. Like, I'm not going to regulate. Right. But what you said about giving yourself permission, like, I do a lot. I do as much as I don't like to admit it because I've given a lot of shit to it over the years, but I really do. I really like to sit with these concepts and like break them down and philosophize over them. Right. And, one thing that I have looked at is, well, authenticity, like I asked you earlier. And for me, that comes down to having an understanding of yourself and then accepting yourself, which is for me, like authenticity and acceptance are the two to be able to start to build your worth. And so authenticity is understanding yourself, and acceptance is allowing yourself to be that. Now, okay, how do I learn to understand myself? And it's like, okay, ask yourself, do you actually like doing this? Do you actually like what you're doing? Or are you just doing it because you think you should? Are you just doing it because you're good at it? And try something on. Something that I stopped myself from doing for a long time was yoga. Um, and another thing was an exercise class. It was like, I don't need that to stay in shape. I don't need any of that to like, I'm a man, I can do it myself kind of a thing. And I just leaned into it. I'm like, who am I trying to please? Who am I trying to look good for? Why does it matter? And all of a sudden I find just this understanding of myself through yoga. And I get into the best shape of my life since my senior year of high school, really, um, by doing Kung Fu in an exercise class. And it's like, and I found community in that too. And it's just one of those things that trying something new and not worrying how I look to other people gives me that understanding of myself. And then if I enjoy it, allow myself to do that, allow myself to be me. And that's that acceptance. And then it's just been like, okay, what am I doing to understand myself? And what am I doing to allowing that to come through? It's something that I tell clients, and I tell, I've said on the podcast for so long, but like taking these words that you hear, and I've said it earlier in this episode too, but like defining it for yourself is so important. And not necessarily just taking the word and defining it like a Webster's dictionary definition, but finding the analogy, finding the metaphor that allows you to understand what that word could mean to you. Hmm. What?
It's like digesting.
Yes, absolutely. And then you get to find a way to relate it to yourself. So then once you can relate it to yourself, you can relate it to other people. Like I had a client who was big into uh, mixed martial arts. So I related concepts to fighting, to martial arts, to various forms. I had another client who was big into religion. So I related concepts to religion. I've had another client that, was big into sports. Okay, let's talk about them in terms of sports. Like that's really how I break things down too, is different sports analogies, because that works for me. But finding a way to be able to relate it to yourself so then you can relate it to other people is really powerful.
That's one of those things I love about like your podcast. Like everything that you say can be relatable to certain people. Your guests are going to say things differently or other
Mm-hmm.
people can relate to. So finding what relates to you through reading, through podcasts, through just listening, like listening more and giving yourself time to internalize it a bit, digest it. And I love that. It's so true because we are spoken to in so many different ways, but they don't always speak to us. So paying
Yes.
attention for what does. And it's not wrong or right. It just is for you.
Uh, that last part of that sentence, that could be the theme for this episode. It just is for you. That is that's that authentic self, that self-love, that journey that you go on and you just start to realize it just is for me. That's okay. That's not just okay, but that's special, right? Oh, that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. Um, when it comes to when it came to really trying to name your emotions and feelings and name them, what was really impactful and helped you to begin that process?
That was a hard process for me. I had pushed my feelings down for so many years. Um, Growing up in a household where um, we didn't talk about feelings, we didn't address them. We ignored them because those were prickly subjects.
Mm-hmm.
So we just kind of pushed on. So uh, that was a really hard beginning for me. And once I did start to the emotions wheel, have you ever seen the picture of the emotions wheel? I remember the first time I looked at that, I went, holy shit. Like, I have no idea what I feel. Like, I
I
feel that. And how do you pinpoint?
Yep. I famously in my story handed it back and asked for something in English.
Those are tough. And it's kind of like, can you bring it down to primary colors? Because there's so many colors and so many items on that wheel. And for me, I think what I did was I realized there is no wrong. I'm going to work with one, and then I'm going to see if that fits, see if I can work it through. Does it resonate with me? And then I would try it on. And it was just trial and error for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if it worked, great. And if it didn't work, then I would move on to something else. And I knew if I was close, and I knew when I was bang on. And then I knew, oh, I thought I was bang on, but no, there's more. So I guess as I'm talking to you, I'm realizing that there is a no wrong answer here because we feel and relate to so many feelings. And sometimes it either goes deeper or it goes like a tree, an offshoot here, an offshoot there. I guess the important thing is that I really, I, I think the important thing is that I never gave up. I continued to look at my feelings. I continued to define them. I continued a quest to understand them. And I do understand them a lot more. And I think that I think to this day, I still don't understand them fully, but I'm very aware. And when one speaks to me, I give it the attention it needs and see where it goes. And I'm not afraid of getting it right. There is no getting it right. And that's the beautiful thing about doing emotion work is if it speaks to you and you're looking at it and you're diving into it, and it may not be the one that you originally started with, it's okay because that's the one you're supposed to be looking at because that's the one that's grabbing your attention. So there's in my world, there's no wrong. It's just keep working through them and keep embracing them and don't be afraid of them. Oh, don't be afraid of them. They're trying to protect us. They
Yes.
really are trying to protect us in a way that if you learn about emotions and why they're trying to. It's very primal and it's very real, but those primal reasons don't necessarily fit into this modern world. So we can understand it, speak to it, say, I get you. I get you. You're just trying to protect me, but I need you to step aside a little bit. I'm going to just, you can take a back seat for now. I got this. And just keep learning about the emotions and don't be afraid of them.
That is an absolute masterclass in that beginning portion of how to really start to work through and understand what it is that's going on. And like you said, when first look at that emotions was like, holy shit, what is this? And it's one of those things like there is no wrong answer. And even like you said earlier in the episode, feel what you're feeling because it's not wrong. It's real, right?
That's right.
It's a lot of the time, we equate our behavior to the emotion. Oh, that behavior was not good. So therefore, this emotion is not good. I can't feel that. But the truth is, it was just the behavior. Was it caused by that emotion? Sure, right? It was part of that. Maybe what caused that. Maybe it was that reaction. You just didn't have the depth and the understanding to be able to get in front of it and not do that behavior. But the emotion is not the cause of it. Like that's what, once you start to learn and you can put some time from experiencing the emotion to responding instead of reacting, right? The reacting is right on top of when that emotion happens. I'm going to act. Okay, now the action is going to happen a little bit further out. Now I can take more time to respond and understand that that is, there's nothing wrong with how you get from A to B. And it takes what it takes. And trial and error is really what it's about, where you could think it's this one emotion and it feels right. And it might be part of that emotion, but there might be another one that's in there too, or it might be something related but different. And something I've noticed, especially the past few months, is processing your emotions. Not only is it a different way to process different emotions, sometimes it's a different way to process the same emotion. Can't do it the same all the time, even though you think you might be able to, because, oh, it's frustration. I can process frustration the same way. Oh, it's grief. I can process grief the same way. As that's not how it works, unfortunately. And when you recognize that and you give yourself the grace that, oh, I may not know what exactly I'm going to need to do to process this one. Let's just try something different because what I would normally do isn't working and it's just not moving. Okay, let's try something a little bit different, see what works. Just give myself patience and it's okay. And one thing at the beginning too that I want to stress, because I've heard a lot about this the past couple weeks, is you don't have to sit in your emotions, especially when you first start to try to process them, for hours at a time. You can take a step back. It's okay. It's not just okay, it's necessary and it's a good thing.
That's a good point. I'm glad you said that because we're talking, knowing what we're doing. That's a
Yeah.
really good point. Yeah,
Yes.
it's funny because you say that. I thought about that when we first learned how to sit with emotions. When I first learned, I went, sit with them. Oh boy, like I'm supposed to feel them. And then I did think, how long?
Yeah.
And then learning that, that's a really good point, RJ, because it doesn't take long. You don't have to sit for a long time. You just
No.
get curious. Yeah.
And at the start, especially if you're like the way that it sounds you, and then especially me, and I wasn't feeling anything for years, like most of my life, it's okay to start with 5 minutes. It's okay to start with 10 minutes. Just set a timer, for real, set a timer and just sit with it for a little bit and get used to what that feels like. And like I said, I don't recommend anybody do things the way that I did it, but like I did not take breaks. I sat with it for freaking days. And
Yeah.
that was not healthy. So take those breaks so that
Yeah.
you don't sit in that pain and just cycle through it and think that that's the way to work through it, because it's honestly, it's not. And this is where a coach really, really can help. And that's something that, whether it's teaching the tools, whether it's sitting with you to be able to process what it is that you're going through, the accountability to actually sit with and feel those emotions. Like, this is where coaching is really, really valuable. And when it comes to finding those patterns underneath, where you have that neutral third party stepping back and being like, well, do you see how that could be connected to this? And then be able to understand that. And then all of a sudden they have a better understanding of themselves. And it's like, oh, I get that.
Yeah, finding the blind spots.
Yes. You know,
Yeah,
that famous saying, you can't read the label from inside the jar.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. I,
Michelle, if people wanted to keep up with you and find out more about your coaching, how could they do that?
well, I have a web page. It's www.levelupcoaching.ca. And I do newsletters, blogs on the webpage, and you can book an appointment with me, discovery call. I do one-on-one coaching, and I have different programs. So, and I am on Instagram and Facebook.
What's your Instagram handle?
I think it's Michelle at Level Up Coaching.
Michelle, that's your at so it's Michelle Level Up Coaching.
Sorry, it's levelupcoaching.ca.
Well, that's your Instagram account.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. So go follow Michelle, because my goodness, she's really great at breaking things down to a level that is really approachable. And there'll be a lot of good information. And if you're really resonating with her, book a discovery call and see if it's a fit, because coaching really is extremely powerful and you see the benefits really quickly from that. Um, I really appreciate you joining me today, Michelle. This was a lot of fun and is a great conversation that a lot of people are going to really benefit from.
Thanks, RJ. It was fun. Very
Awesome.
interesting.
I'm
Thank
glad. I'm
you.
glad. This has been Untapped Keg. Subscribe, share this podcast with somebody who you think would benefit from it. And, leave me a review. Let me know how I'm doing as a host. Let me know what I could be doing better. Let me know if there's, you just are enjoying it. I really appreciate it. Whether it's a 1-star or 5-star review, appreciate all those reviews. And let's try to be better tomorrow than we were today, because we don't make it, we tried. Love you. Have a great week, everybody.